In order. Tonight's a work session for the budget, and we're going to go over the subsidy applications. I want to remind everybody that the subsidies are not in the structured balance budget we presented to you, so anything you put in, something else has to come out, just to make you aware. With that, I'll turn it over to President Carl.
All right, I got a little thing I wrote so I don't forget anything. There will be no formal action tonight. This is just a work session for budget planning purposes. But we will need to get a consensus kind of on the different applications so staff knows where they need to cut and where they don't need to cut. But because of that, I'm going to ask someone to propose a funding level so we can take an informal vote on each of the all the items that we're going to talk about. The formal action will be taken during this meeting, but there will be nothing decided because our final budget doesn't come until November. We're going to go in the order, I guess, that they are on the sheet here. Does anybody have any questions to start with, or get her going? First one is big friend, little friend. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss it as a council, and if anybody has any questions for the people in the audience, we can call them up and ask them questions. So,
Stephanie, at one point you had said that they had missed the deadline for submitting information.
Correct. Their application was received after the deadline.
But you have it all now?
Yeah, it was included in the information that they presented, it was done on last year's application. We did not have audited statements or in lieu of that, a 990 form, but I did include the information just so you could discuss and review it. But technically, it did say on the news release, it says it on the application that if they're received after the date, they won't be considered. I did include it because it's happened in the past and council asked me to put it back on, so, for other applications.
I'll make a motion to deny,
I'll second it.
and hopefully next year they get their application in.
okay, we got a motion and a second. Jeff and Mike, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, denied. Next is Mitchell Main Street and Beyond, asking for $50,000.
Up from 35,000 a year before. And what's the change that you need to increase is my question.
Yeah. Can we hear from them?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't have the answer.
No, I know, I'm turning over to Kevin.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer either.
Everything goes to Kevin tonight.
Yeah.
This is your
I'm
guys'
asking
show.
Kevin,
Yep.
can we have them come up? Okay.
Yes, Kevin.
Yep, I'm just going to do this so I don't lose track of where I'm at. I can't do two.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jen Bradley from the Scoreboard Pub and Grill. Stephanie Vaughn from the Depot is with me tonight. I'm the Secretary Treasurer. Stephanie's the Vice President. And our fearless leader, Drew Porter from Porter Distributing, is not here tonight. He's at a beer conference. They have those things. So he didn't take us. We thought the same. Real quickly, we just wanted to remind you that we are the one and only organization that is dedicated to the revitalization of Main Street. Keep in mind that our community visioning process from Vision 2020 to Forward 2040 all lists Main Street as one of the top concerns for our community. And how can we continue to revitalize it? There's a lot of good things going. Me personally, I'm listening to that. I'm listening to what we have said over year after year after year is Main Street is picking back up. It's thriving. I chose to personally move that forward with our own business and the renovations here in town. But can you imagine our organization not putting on some of our big events that we have, from First Fridays to Oktoberfest coming up at September 30th, to bringing back or picking up, Mitchell's Memorial Weekend and also the Parade of Lights. So some of the things we're really proud of. Back in my retail days, they had once said, you know, we're going to do our best to advertise and bring people to your front door. What you do from there is up to you. And I think that stands true with Mitchell Main Street is this organization does a really good job trying to benefit our living room of our community, and it is up to us individual business owners to capitalize on that. One of the other things, of course, we have the revolving loan fund. Currently, we have less than $25,000 in our bank account, which means over $130,000 is being loaned out to our members within our organization. We're also instrumental in helping out with the bid and getting all that taken care of. I think that's all I have. Stephanie?
Well, and one important thing to keep in mind, guys, is that our events are free to the public. The sales that we're getting off of that, for instance, Memorial Day went back to Rocks, and then also going into our own fund to then host more events. Obviously, if anybody's spent money anywhere recently, we know the cost of everything is increasing, and that goes for us as well. For instance, Memorial Day, we have to purchase the ribs. In the past, when it was held by other entities, there was a lot more, it seemed like there was a lot more freebies handed out, whether it was from Smithfield out of Sioux Falls or somewhere where they were, donating a lot more. And we definitely hit that hard, and we did get some donated, but definitely not all. And so the cost, bands, things that we're having out here on the plaza that, for First Fridays, that's a concern as well. The cost of everything is just not going to stay the same, and so we have to grow with that. Unfortunately, I wish it weren't the case, but obviously it is. So we're trying to sustain, we're trying to grow. We are listening to the community and people saying, hey, why don't you have an Oktoberfest? We started that a few years ago, and that continues to grow. It's a silly thing, but we want to do Hammerschlagen. It's a copyrighted term, guys. If we want to do Hammerschlagen, where you hit the nail in the head at Oktoberfest, we have to apply for a license, yes, because it's a copyrighted term. It's silly, but it's a huge deal in other communities, and so we're trying to make quality events that will bring people in, create, our tax dollars, and we want to continue to do that, and that's what we're listening to the people who attend our events. Obviously, if it's not a fun event, people aren't going to show up. So
I think to address your question directly, John, if you take all of our different events from the First Friday events and split it across the board, we have specific items for that $15,000 increase, but it'd be around $1,250 per event to bring in, like she said, different activities, better bands, et cetera. We're not paying very much for some of the bands we get, and we would like to spend another $200 per First Fridays. So. And you guys are all good business people. You understand the need and the inflation and everything. It's not going into our team salary, nothing like that. It is strictly to keep growing on some of the events that we have in town.
What percentage of the Main Street business owners belong to your organization?
As like downtown businesses. I don't know the percentage.
The percentage offhand I don't have, but I can tell you that we have over 120 membership and we're growing. In the past couple of months, we've taken on 8. 2 of them are off Main Street, but so we've brought on 6 Main Street business owners on board with Main Street because of our passion and our forward thinking right now. People are seeing that we're the shakers and the movers and that we're going to make it happen.
And are your members current in their dues? What's your
How many are not current?
receivable from your membership?
Like on Main Street?
Yeah, no, just out of 120 members, do we have 5 that are not current on their dues?
Oh, we only have 3 that are past due right now. That's it. Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
One of the things, I know it's very important, the downtown, but what I like to see is we got a couple new members this year. Jensen Design Build was one of them, is they're seeing what we're doing downtown, and they love seeing that. They're hiring people all the time and getting people to try and move here and buy their houses, and they see the events we put on. So yes, while Main Street business owners are our top focus and priority, we have to think beyond that because there are a lot of strong business owners and people that want our Main Street to thrive as well.
likewise, our membership base is very much mom and pop businesses. They're not big corporations. And so, a membership due, while our dues are not very expensive, we have very many levels that they can participate in. $150 might depend if their doors are open or not. And we've heard that. So we, try to be graceful and accommodating. Can they do a payment plan, or something like that. And so we're trying to help those businesses out to be a part of us, for us to give back to them as well.
Can you give us some insight into what other communities budget for their main streets?
We'll let Elizabeth address that.
So over the past couple of weeks, we've been really reaching out. We've been reaching out before this, but really digging into how others are funded. They are funded differently. Not all towns are structured different, or the same. We're funded differently than others. But I can tell you that the general fund, I believe Stephanie might have this number, yep. I did find out through talking to them, the Watertown, it is 80,000, and Aberdeen is actually awarded 95 for next year when I reached out and talked to them.
This is 2023 approved as reported by their city administrator or manager. The blue would be out of general fund, the green are out of entertainment tax.
Okay. Like I said, others are funded. 80 is Watertown. So other cities are working together. They're seeing their value in downtown districts and helping them be successful. So we appreciate all your time, your consideration. You can see the movement that we're trying to make on Main Street, but this is where it's currently at. Thank you, Stephanie, for doing the research as well and working with us. Any other awesome questions? Yes,
I got a
Dan?
couple things I'm going to put in. First on the audit, just so everybody understands, it's got me down as a director. That must be a typo from Carlin on their audit. I am not a director, so I don't have to sustain, but I am the city liaison for it. And on the bid tax goes by your evaluation. Now, we were getting, correct me, 54,000 roughly?
I'm sorry.
I just on the bid tax, I'm sorry.
I'm going to let Ashley talk on the bid because she has those numbers.
And
But yes.
I just
Yes.
today, I got our new bid tax. There was one, it maxed out at 3,000. There was one business on Main Street with 3,000, there's 4. And me personally, my next year's is going up about 32%. So if you take, I don't know if that's across the board, but they're going through all the businesses. Their auditors are coming, or the auditors, the
Assessors.
what do you wanna call it?
assessments.
Valuations, they're going through all the businesses, going through them all, and mine's going up 31%. So if that does that, the bid tax will go up 31% too, because it goes on a percentage of your evaluation. So, me math in my head, there's going to be 75, 80,000 next year that they will be sticking in, and that goes for loans and also grants to redoing Main Street. So you put in for them, you get it. We're always real big on 50-50, paying back. If people stick in, they are sticking in. I'm just huge on Main Street, and this is before I'm a liaison. I've only been to one meeting so far. And I think it's a worthy cause, and that they're doing a lot to stick in. What they did to Cherubi's front, it's just the one to name it, is really good, and we want them to stick back in. They are sticking back into the city, plus their all their events they're putting on, which I was impressed at the first meeting on their events. Elizabeth's amazing organized. Everything's every event I've seen has grown and gotten better. It's just a great organization, and I think this is well deserved of the 50,000.
I'd move approval for Mitchell Main Street that we increase it to 50,000.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Susan, second by Tim. Went blank there. Tim.
It's like, Tim.
All in favor of the motion? Go ahead. What's that? Any other discussion with the council?
I would just like to make a comment. I got a couple of people that came to me and said that they want you to be more inclusive with their business. Don't stop it a block from their business, whether it's the south or the north. There was no specific. So I guess that would be my comment to you, to just make sure you're including all the businesses, whether they're involved in it or not.
Yeah, so we've tried to do that, and we have. So, I mean, even for me at the depot, I'm like, hey, let's have Oktoberfest down there, let's have the Memorial, and it works. I mean, it just flows that way. Memorial Day had been there in years past anyway. And that's great. First Fridays, it's tough because,
Centralized.
well, it's centralized here pretty well with the band, with the plaza and the bands and things like that. And so what we're trying to do is get things further, and then we have people complain that it's too drawn out. So it's hard because we're like, oh, we're trying to give some, down here and trying to give some down here. But yeah, we definitely are trying to divide it and.
One of the comments was, and this is more towards Joe, for the Harley Hill, we went chip sealed the street in front of Big Dumps.
Mm-hmm.
None of the bikers would park there. That's not on.
Yeah, and that's not on us. Yeah, we're not in charge of that event, but, right, sure. No, and that's something that obviously from us and us being Main Street owners or business owners, we hear a lot of feedback from people. And so it's trying to keep this person happy and that person happy and everybody in between. So, I think we're trying to do the best we can and at least getting foot traffic to people's front doors in one way or another.
Any more comments?
I'd have
Thank
to-
you.
One comment that the $15,000 increase that you all are for is a 40% bump. If we give everybody 40% more, we would have a tough time making budget. So, I'm not opposed to leaving them where they're at, but 40,000 or 40% increase in their request is significant.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that too, John. Again, we're $1, we're going to have to try to find wherever that's at. And I think at the end of the night, we're going to have to point to Stephanie and to Bob and say, can you guys go back, get with the department heads and then come up with some options where we're going to be able to fund this? I'm 100% in at where they're at last year and take a look and see where we're at and possibly we can find more in the end. And we might be able to. But to go up 42%, I think is fairly large.
I would ask Stephanie right now, where's it gonna come from?
I would tell you that's going to be a council decision
gotta
about what are
decide
you going to cut.
You've had no discussion. So you've had no discussion about.
No.
Well, and what,
We don't know what to discuss, how much you're
What-
gonna give. all this stuff.
Let's say it's $500,000, where are we gonna get it?
I don't know where
Probably take out the dump truck.
we can all pick and choose what it's going to be, but what I asked Bob and Stephanie is if they could come back with a couple, 3 options. And then that way, we're not going line by line trying to determine, and you guys know the budget and the departments and so forth, and you guys are gonna have to cooperate too. But if they can just come back and give us some ideas of maybe what we could look at and hone it in,
Right, but
then we can make the final decision from there. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, because our department heads are taking a cut on their things, and they're not getting increases, so.
Well,
I
one
don't
of
see
the-
anybody getting an increase. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking, and I don't know, is that the pickleball courts got their $195,000 grant that we still,
That's already.
The grant was included in the
Oh,
revenue
I
budget
didn't
for
see
Park
it.
and Rec, yeah.
I
As
just
well
saw
as-
it here on the one that you had tonight
Yeah.
that just showed 400, so
Yeah.
that's why I actually highlighted it right
Yeah.
here as 400.
So we had 107,000 coming from donations and 195 from the grant. If we didn't get the grant, we were going to have to use fund cash.
I didn't see that you had
But
it on.
this is,
I
we're
had it
talking Mitchell
highlighted.
Main Street and beyond. We're talking Mitchell Main.
No, I know, I'm just, I was just talking about some options of where
Yeah.
we might be able to,
Cut.
that there.
Just so you know, all grants we're expecting to get are already in the revenue. So you can't say, well, we're getting a grant here, we'll be able to, no, it's already figured into this budget.
And I guess just to help you too, when you go through that big, the big long sheet for capital improvements, if you go to the right, for example, on that one that you just mentioned, Susan, for parks, what? Hold on. I gotta find my pickleball. Yeah, here you'll see, as you go across, $400,000 cost, $302,000 is coming from grants and donations, yeah. So, it's in there, but we factor the revenue into.
You ladies, tell me, so like when you do an event, like, is there like a prime sponsor that supplies the band? Like, you used to do the band?
I wish I would have brought my sponsorship packet for you, sir. But yes, so we do have a sponsorship structured. event. We have a targeted goal for each event, like we know you can see those estimated numbers in the budget that we expect to spend next year. So like when you do that, we have top tier, we have like a diamond level, platinum level, gold, silver, bronze, all the way down. Now, is that like one person? No. So if I have 4 diamonds across the bottom, they all get to say, we are the diamond sponsors for First Fridays, we are the platinum, we are the silver. And that all comes with its own sponsorship package.
Yeah, you can kind of pick what we want to
Yep. It's not in there, Susan, you won't, or Stephanie, you won't find it. But I can definitely pop one on over to you, or you can go to our website and find it too, but
Actually, Liz, I was just bringing up your budget. in case
Oh,
anyone
appreciate
wanted
it.
to look at that, yeah.
absolutely.
So what is a silver sponsorship?
$250 for one event. So you had the option to do that across the board. So it starts with Wingapalooza, the First Fridays, Memorial Weekend in Mitchell, and then you also have Oktoberfest coming up. We highlight those as our big premier ones. And then you also get the option if you want to, we call it kind of other opportunities, like our $210 flower baskets out here. They're not cheap to put flowers in. And then we also have the Parade of Light sponsorship, and then also our Christmas shopping for kids is something that we do as well. So we provide 10 community-free events over the entire year, plus over 30 retail opportunities. So that's kind of where we help bring in big corporates or even the little people. We do the bronze, which is this, I believe it's either 50 or 100, I can't remember right now. But that's like an opportunity, for example, Megan's Grooving. She can only, as of right now, this is not, it's just, she wants to help with First Fridays because her kid loves the First Fridays. It's an opportunity for her to give back to the community, get tagged a couple times on social media, and get her name out there as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, we got a motion by Susan, second by Tim. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay? Nay. Probably take a vote.
We're not going to do roll call, so just
Raise your hand.
go around and answer yes or no.
No.
Aye.
No.
Or no.
4 is no then.
Okay,
So it
and I'll,
fails.
and I'll make a motion at the existing amount and then take a look at our numbers and see if there's possibly more that we can put in.
I'd second that.
A motion by Jeff, second by John. Stay at 35,000. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against, nay?
Nay.
Okay. 7-1, 35. Mitchell Band, Municipal Band. For $11,000. Any discussion on that?
I guess I'll just point out, there is one year that there was no funding, and that wasn't from council cutting.
COVID, wasn't it?
There was one year where they didn't do the band because of COVID, so then they just used those funds the next year.
I'll move approval of the 11,000 that stays the same as last year's.
Second.
Motion by Susan, second by Marty. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against, nay? Motion passed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have CASA for 2,000.
Why didn't we
Yeah, last year they didn't have it.
approve last year?
Last year, you had cut it just as an effort to balance the budget.
Is anyone here from CASA?
As I look at their information provided, they've got a cash balance of nearly $500,000, and to ask for $2,000 seems like begs the question, why?
I do wish they were here to tell us what they would like to do with that $2,000.
Just for the public's knowledge, or anybody who's watching, all of the subsidy applications did receive an email inviting them to come to the meeting, knowing that this would be the day that it would be discussed.
You have any motions?
Yeah, I agree with John a little bit. We got $500,000 and we're looking for 2,000. It's really doesn't go together, I guess. And also the applicant is not here to answer any questions. Move to deny, please.
Got a motion by Marty, second?
Second.
Second by John. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, nay? Denied. Next, we have the Exchange Club fireworks display for $10,000.
Move that we maintain them at $10,000.
Second.
A motion by Susan, second by Mike. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against, nay? Motion passed. Any discussion? I know, but does anybody have it? Next is the Mitchell area housing for $75,000.
I had a conversation with Terry Sabers earlier today, and he wanted me just to make a couple comments. What this is for, just as a reminder, and maybe new to you guys, is when they take a house down in town, then they do the dumping fees, and they have asked the city to help with those particular fees. So last year, when we were going through and putting it into the budget, we estimated that it'd be $25,000 per house, give or take, and they thought that they would need no more than 3. Last year, they used 1, and they've got 1 right now that they're seriously trying to work to get in place. More than likely will be a next year project. The likelihood of them having 3, I guess, who knows, probably small. But if they don't take any houses down, then they don't ask for the money.
I just will clarify for council too, in the one request that we've had in 23 from Mahi, there was more than just dumping fees approved by council. It was also some cost to remove the existing structure.
So Stephanie, is there still money in that line item from last year left?
Yep, I should have looked that up. Let me pull it up quick.
Yeah, we don't have any information on their financial situation right now.
Other than the, just that page budget overview that they gave you was all, but no, there was not a 990 or an audited statement. You know the number, Michelle? Must be economic development then? Yeah. Okay. So there's been 28,317 spent this year. There's still 46,683 left.
So my question for them is, do they want 75, are they asking for just so that they have a balance of 75,000 in their account?
I guess I can pull up your application.
But that's kind of what you.
I am on that committee, and they, so far they tore down 2 houses, and the other one is a bare lot. They built 2 stick homes and 1 slang word Jankel house, and that sold before they got done. That's right by the McGovern Library, and the one on right by the tennis courts, right west there in Birch. That one just sold, and then this one right over here that they tore down. That was really a bad eyesore. It does clean up towns. They take down old houses more so than just build. And it's on 7th and 2 blocks west of here. And that stick home is just getting done on a slab and up for sale. But I know they got more lots coming. I don't think none of them are finalized unless he said he did. But.
No, I think in the cover letter, it just says that they're looking at one on East Fifth.
And you said in the past that if they don't use it, it comes back to us.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Dan. All in favor of the motion,
Wait,
say.
can I just ask a
Yep,
question?
go ahead.
So are you approving a balance of $75,000 in their account or a total new appropriation of $75,000? That's my
balance.
question. Balance.
Balance.
Yeah, so that would be
So you're doing the difference of what's left.
46,683 is what we're asking, is 46,683 to
Yeah, take them back up to the 75.
Which is,
46,683.
Is that where, okay, good, I'm just going to go with it.
I have a couple questions here. It's caught me off guard there a little bit. I don't know, if Jerry wants to come up here and answer this question for me, I guess. In a meeting, I'm the liaison, and I guess by fair term, we had a little hoopla, and to say the least. And this was Jerry's words, not mine. They lost a substantial amount of money on the Birch House. I want to define substantial amount of money.
Over 30,000.
So my
It was actually the second house.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
Birch, I thought you said first.
No, the Birch House. And I would like to point out, the first house that sold to one of their coworkers. Not saying she didn't qualify and doesn't want to go out, I don't know. My point is they're getting into a business, and I did a little numbers on it today. There's 16 builders in Mitchell doing what they're doing. How is it right that we're funding that as taxpayers? Those people that are paying the taxes are funding that. That is my question.
To me, it's cleaning up Mitchell. Jerry, do you want to touch base on that and what Aberdeen's doing?
Sure. First of all, I guess my question back to you, Mike, respectfully, is we have listed these houses at 180,000, 198,000, and 194,900. And how many of those houses that these other developers are building are in that price range?
Okay, I assumed you would ask me that. So, I also looked up what the new affordable first-time buyer is, $350. Does anybody know how many houses are on the market under that right now? 290. The ones I know of, so there's 29 listed, and I know of 2 other ones that are on the market. So there's 31. Why should we supply a new house for someone wanting to move to Mitchell? If they want to move to Mitchell, there's 31 houses on the market. If they don't fit, let them do the building. I don't like the idea of us, and I've talked to these builders, for the most part, not all of them, I agree with what you're saying, they're not willing to build those houses on the market, because it is a niche, I guess you could say. They're not gonna make a pile of money on it. So, I have a hard time, I understand, I like what Jeff says about taking them back to the 75 to tear it down. It is taxpayer dollars. And I've said this before, I've done the same exact thing with my own money. I did not get the free dump fees. I think that's a great avenue we should be looking at because of what you said, Dan, that it is cleaning up the city. I would totally agree with that. That was a total eyesore. And that, that I just have a problem spending taxpayer dollars to do what I guess nobody did for me.
So I guess one of my questions is, are there other builders then that are doing this same thing? Because I honestly, I was a little on the fence. I had a conversation with Marty about this, and there's a little part of me that's like, what have we accomplished in the last year? So, but my question to you is, do we have other builders who are going in, tearing a current existing eyesore down and building in that location? You are one? Okay. So you do that now, and do you build this kind of price range?
I did not, but I do have one on the market in this price range, under 300,000.
Okay, well, yeah, so what about under 200,000? I mean, do you have anything like that is in this price range?
No.
I think, yeah,
I think the meters moved on what is affordable.
sure,
Big.
absolutely,
We all know that.
absolutely.
Is it
No
big?
question about it.
I wish I
Yeah.
knew. Maybe
Yeah.
Jeff knows.
Yeah.
But that's just my take on, my first take on it. Like I said, we've had this discussion twice, me and Jerry have, and
Yeah.
I had your number right where you said it.
Yeah. For some perspective on this, these 3 infill lots were more of a trial, if you will, to see what works, what doesn't work. We know that governor's houses work because they're less expensive. We have another governor's house coming by the end of the year, so I'd ask you don't cut the budget for this year because we'll be looking for a lot or tearing down an old house to make room for that house. There's really three spokes of this program. The infill lots is just one. The second one is home rehabilitation programs, and we are getting tons of funds through grants to fix up housing. And now we have a staff person to do it. And then we also have housing developments. And so the 3 houses will be replicated over and over and over if we get the grants that we have applied for.
I do have one clarification to point out for council. If your intention is to ensure that whatever is not spent in '23 can be used in '24, you can do that as part of the supplemental process in '24. It doesn't have to be included in the annual budget. Okay, so they have a $75,000 budget right now. If at December 31st, there's still $46,000 left, we can supplement that next year as part of our supplemental appropriations we do in March or April, and then you don't have to find additional funds this year. So I just want to make sure that you knew there's another way.
I got a question too, so if you go at 46 and they spend.
We would go at 28,317, which is what they spent.
Right, okay, so if they still have 4 months left, they could spend the rest of that 75,000. Are you going to leave them at the lower amount? That's what I'm saying. Bring them back up to 75,000. Wouldn't it be
Right.
easier to give them the amount and bring back the money that they don't use if there's some there?
Oh, I see, sure, that works.
I'm just asking.
I think that'd be a better way of doing it.
Jerry, do you see that? Is there going to be more money spent this year?
We sure hope so. The East Fifth lot fell through. The gentleman's not going to sell till spring. So now we're working with a developer for a lot. So, and
I would think it'd be easier your way, Steph.
So a clarification though, is if you're budgeting it this year and you're going to, although the funds are left over next year, you still have to cut something else out of this year's budget to make it work. So I just want to make sure council's aware that if your intention is just to ensure that whatever is left out of the 75,000, they can still spend, I would do that through the supplemental budget process that we do in the spring of '24, because then you're not budgeting for it twice, where if you, I mean, I'm not saying what your intention is, but if that's the intention, it would be easier to do it that way so we don't have to cut it out of '24. Unless you want to make sure they have a certain amount for '24, then you got to put it in.
Clear as mud?
Jerry, would you guys ever consider a business model where, because the purpose of these funds is to levy houses that are an eyesore, and then contract with local builders with the stipulation that you're building a house under the threshold of 200,000? Is that something you guys look at or look for?
Sure, we did an RFP for the first house like that. We didn't have many takers, and one of the reasons that we didn't do well on the East Birch is that we did contract for the house being built rather than working on it ourselves. So, yeah. I wanted to follow up on the comment about the no financials. We have not sent in our first 990 or whatever it would be. We're that new yet, yeah.
So being that new, Jerry, is it safe to say you learned a lot already?
We learned an awful lot, yeah. And I guess the exciting thing is there is funding out there for rehab grants, so we'll be aggressive with that. Hopefully, you're going to see some improvements in the community.
Obviously, you don't want to be losing money, and that type of house probably is not going to be rebuilt.
Correct.
Governor Holmes seemed to do very well. And being a nonprofit, theoretically, what you want to do is recoup your money.
So you
and
can get a
roll
little
it.
kitty going, yeah,
Right.
Yep.
So in reality, that would be one difference.
yeah.
Um,
If Terry were here, he would say we're going to average it out. So we must lost 30, but we made 40, so an average of the house, but.
And we're modeling this, we, being Mitchell, modeling this after a program up in Aberdeen that's been very successful with building affordable workforce housing and being able to bring hopefully people into town as a result of it. And it's a committee. Dan, you said you sit on that committee? And how many people are on that approximately?
Well, we've got
5 or
two
6?
committees. We've got a housing committee that you sit in, Dan, and we probably have a dozen. The Mahi board is 7 members.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to finalize this budget in November. Would it be safe to say you kind of know where you're going to
Sure.
be at
There's-
that point in time?
Sure.
If that works. I still would like to get them back up to the 75 and possibly challenge them to do 3 inlet lots in Mitchell and clean them up. There's plenty out there.
It's hard to get.
And that's
somebody-
the other thing, is this committee goes out and searches them, researches, finds out who the owners are, and actually work with them. A lot of them are absentee owners that don't even live in Mitchell.
Yeah, I think that workforce housing is such an essential part of meeting any goal that our city has. I mean, if we're going to grow at all, we have to have workforce housing. I read in the master plan that we lost a truss plant to Hartford because we didn't have enough housing here. So, I mean, I feel like it's critically important. And so last year I was like, guns a-blazing, yay, let's do this. And I think I was just really optimistic that we were going to see some real progress made. And I guess, if I'm being honest, I'm a little bit disappointed that we haven't come a little further. But I had a conversation with Marty, and he's like, we need to put our trust in them and give them another year and let them have another year to prove themselves. And because Mike, I hear what you're saying, and I mean, are there other things that we could do that would make it more equal for all builders? I mean, I certainly can hear what you're saying about that. But we've invested, and I don't have a problem keeping them at the 75,000 so that we have that balance going into the 2024 year. So, yeah, I'm cheering you on and hoping that we can get some more progress made.
Okay.
How do you want to word your motion, Jeff? You want to?
Well, what I currently have is that you want to include in the 24 budget $46,683, which is the current balance remaining in 2023.
Plus.
Or do we want to wait till November and?
That number, actually, don't they want to give
Plus,
them the
yeah,
amount they
28.
spent this year?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if they spend
It's 28.
46
another house.
remaining, there's 28 to spend.
Okay, they told me 46, that's what
Well,
you,
that's the
that's what you
balance,
guys said.
that's the balance of what's in there
Yeah.
still. So we just need to bring it to.
But if they do another one,
However, the best way,
I'm just telling you, that's what your motion was.
Get back the money.
I don't care which way you go.
the mayor's probably right, is the 75 goes into the 24, and whatever is left over then comes back into the general fund.
So you want me to put 28, what you've actually spent, or you got amended?
we give them the 75,
Give them 75.
and then at the end of
It'll
the,
be
Yeah, the
75.
money left over at the end of 23 will come back to us and go back into the general.
so they have 75 when they start in 24.
Okay, so are Jeff and Dan okay with that change?
I am.
Okay.
Okay, we got a motion by, any other discussion?
It's a lot easier math.
Any other discussion on this one? Okay, got a motion by Jeff to keep their balance at 75, second by Dan. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Against, nay?
Nay.
Okay, 7-1. Passes. Next, we have Code of Counseling for $26,250.
We missed.
Oh, safe place. That's something written there. Basically, the old safe house for $20,000.
And last year, we raised them so large because they were in the middle of their construction, and so they asked for an additional amount, and understand, since last year, prices have gone up just a smidge, and so they still haven't built, and so they're in the middle of trying to still get that put together. Mayor, I don't know if you even want to comment on that or not.
They're redoing their drawings and getting ready to put it out for bid. We'll got October 25th or the end of October sometime. They will bid the project, put it out on the street.
And it's safe to say that they're still looking for
They're
money?
still looking for money, yes. Very serious.
Just to clarify then, so they got 20,000 last year for the build, and they're wanting an additional, so they'd have 40,000 for the build then?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that-
what compared to what it's costing. So. I don't know what kind of
Okay. Any discussion?
If they need me to.
I'm just here if you have any questions. My name's Colleen Hoffman, and I'm the Executive Director for Safe Place of Eastern South Dakota. So if you have any questions or any clarifications, you can ask me. The business manager handles the financial stuff, so I won't be able to answer a lot of that, but I can tell you about the programming and the essential needs that we are in the community.
Is this 20,000 though specifically earmarked for the building or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, it's for our overhead, not just for building, but for our services, for sustainability. With our grant fundings going away, we want to still be able to provide those services and programs to the Mitchell and surrounding communities.
The application states that it's used to operate the facility, utilities, maintenance, food supplies, and administrative expenses. What Jeff's alluding to is prior to the campaign to expand their shelter, the funding was $4,500. So that was council discussion on the justification for the increase, was those increased costs coming in.
I'm a big supporter of the Safe House. I used to be on the board, so I hope that I can say this without sounding like I'm not. But that we gave the 20,000 last year because of the building project. But prior to that, we had been at about the 45, obviously for several years, we've been at the 4,500 except for 2021 when everybody took a 25% cut. So I think that what is hard for me is to justify where we specifically were giving towards your building fund last year. It's difficult to justify the additional 20,000 for what we were giving 4,500 before. Does that make sense?
It does. But we are still in that building phase though in the campaign, so we don't have that, that building like we were hoping that we had it last year. But we are working in doing that this year then. Like we said, it's going to start in October for bids and hopefully start breaking ground in March.
Hi, I'm Teresa Burnt. I'm the new development director at Safe Place. So I'm just going to say in response to that, you're right, it was for the building, but the building is a Building a Safe Future campaign. So it's not just the building, it's for.
Teresa, can you talk into the microphone?
Yep. Well, I thought I was using my teacher voice.
Teacher voice.
Okay. The Building a Safe Future campaign isn't just for the building. It's also for the programming, the educational outreach that we do to 8 counties. So we just learned that some of our funding grants that they have depended on are down to 45% is what they're getting. So that does impact the everyday, day-to-day work and salaries and administrative fees and all that. So we have to come up with that on top of whatever else we want to do for expanding our programs and also for, we're going with the building, so that's exciting, but we still have to do that campaign. So, there's two different boards at Safe Place. There's the operating board that's the everyday, day-to-day, and then there's the foundation, which is making sure we have our fundraising to help support, and then if the Safe Place, the operating itself has a shortfall, we have to help cover that. So it's kind of 2 funding sources. So this one really is geared towards the operating of the actual Safe Place, just to clarify.
You, if I may, you mentioned 8 counties that you serve.
Yes.
Do 8 counties contribute to your efforts?
Yes, they do the county
Marriage and divorce.
marriage and divorce tax, we get that. And then if anybody donates throughout, which we do have some donors, but it's not always huge donations.
Can you address any increase in need that you have been seeing that would help us justify this?
One thing that you may not be aware of is that we serve human trafficking in the area. We partnered with Call to Freedom back in 2020, and human trafficking has been pretty prevalent in the last year. So we do help those, and we have seen an increase in human trafficking on top of our domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking.
Any other questions?
I'll move to approve the 20,000.
Second.
A motion by Marty, second by Mike. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Oh, any other discussion? Anybody else have any thought? Okay. Everybody in
you.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay. Motion passed for 20.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Next, Dakota Council, 26,250.
I'm trying to remember last year, I think what we did was we mirrored it for whatever reason with the Indian Village, the amount that we gave them. But I can't remember how we took it down to the 13,000. I mean, it's unrelated, but it was just that we're trying to keep it fair for everyone. Does that ring a bell for anybody? Obviously not.
Sorry, it doesn't.
You got any notes at all? I think that's what you're doing, right?
Super slow tonight.
Oh, you're good. Usually she might make sense.
I'd just like to say that I actually have a gentleman that's in there right now working for me. And I think it's a fantastic program. I would really like to tell me what the success rate is. Because I see that a lot where they'll go to firm interviews, fall off the face of the earth. And then a couple years later, they're back again. So I think there's a huge need for it, huge need for it. And I'm going to support it.
I would like to point out, Mike, though, that they have a little over $2 million in the bank.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't have a note on the specific reason. I just had the motion, sorry. What is this?
Mike, can you kind of tell us the process that you guys go through of utilizing or not utilizing this particular entity?
Yes, typically what we do, we utilize, first would be your detox facility function of the agency. Also, I'm on their board, so keep that in mind.
Of the Dakota Counseling
Yes, ma'am.
Agency? Okay.
Yes. Typically, what would happen is if we find an individual that's intoxicated, we would make our first call to Stepping Stones to see if they have room in the facility. And if they do not, then our second would be to take them over to the Davidson County Jail for detox there. Traditionally, most of our individuals wind up at the jail. They don't have beds for the detoxes most of the time. The other that we utilize, Stepping Stones, the Dakota counseling portion of it, our individuals in crisis, our officers would go out, visit with them, make, us not being mental health professionals, make a recommendation, do they or do they not need intervention? And we would, at times, more often call to get an on-call person to come and give a second opinion, someone that's a little more specialized in the field. And based on those two, make the decision, do they or do they not qualify for emergency intervention? So those are the two ways that the police department would utilize the facility.
I know one of our questions that we've had year after year for you, Michelle, is about other counties that are using your services and whether or not they're contributing. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Good evening, Michelle Carpenter, Executive Director of Dakota Counseling. Gosh, I feel like I was just here. You guys make me nervous. Yes, so we do have funding from other counties. We did get an increase from Davidson County this year as well. So that was very helpful. We serve a number of our area counties. So right now, we get funding from Aurora, Davison, Hanson, Hutchinson, and Sanborn counties. So the only county in our catchment area that does not help is Brule County. And they haven't since I've been there, so it's been over 25 years.
I do remember the discussion last year. You wanted half of what the counties as a whole were contributing, so that's why you went to 13,000, because it was half of what the counties collectively were funding towards their funding. That's how you ended up at 13,000. It just clicked on me.
Yeah.
Would it be okay to throw in a couple extra comments? In reference to the services that we use with the Mitchell Police Department, some of our detox beds, our beds, we have to keep them relatively full to make ends meet. Some of the detoxes are aggressive, maybe not appropriate to be there. Others need more of a medical model than our social model. And a lot of times our detox beds are filled with people that are coming in for like a 28-day treatment. They come and they're intoxicated. Well, their ride dropped them at the doorstep with a suitcase and left. So we're putting those folks in the detox, and the state is paying for those beds. That's not something that would be included in our request here. And then in regards to the mental health crisis, we did a tally last year to find out the after hours, weekends, holidays, evenings. I'm not sure exactly how many times you think we have contact a week, a day. I know one Monday morning I went in there and we had 3 QMHP evals that were being, three qualified mental health professional evals that needed to be done to see if they could be released to the community or go to Human Services Center, inpatient mental health treatment. We tallied that out last year, and it came just short of, if we were able to bill that time or not. If we were able to bill that out, it would tally about 70,000, and we're not able to recoup any of that. John, if I could just refer to your comment about our $2 million in reserves. A little over $1 million of that is still state and federal COVID dollars. We were able to get an extension, and those funds don't have to be utilized until June of '24. So we are being very conservative. You know, I have many things I could go spend them on, but it's very rigid. I think I talked about that last year, where this has to be spent on building, this has to be spent on staff. You know, you have to classify it, retention, all of those formula. And we are just trying to be really conservative, but I would expect $1 million of that is going to have to drop off before next June. And then when you look at $1 million, holy cats, you got $1 million, right? That sounds like a lot of money. That's only 2 months of operating expense for us right now. Our budget's 6.5. So it's just a little over 2 months. If the state or one of our big funding sources weren't able to pay their bill to us for some reason, I can only pay staff for 2 months. The last, I wanted to just address your comment about what's our success rate. We judge success very, very differently. We have some people who haven't been sober for 10 years, and if they're successful for 2 months when they get out of treatment, if they stayed sober for 2 months, we probably would count that as success. So success is different for every individual, and we try to have a lot of empathy and know that there is a lot of relapsing. Same as somebody who's been stable in their mental health crisis for years and years, had to go off their medications because they're having a baby, and now we're facing inpatient hospitalization. So success is rated very, very differently for us.
These are some of the comparisons with the other first-class municipalities of what they reported that their payments are out of general fund.
So if there's not a number, does that mean
They just didn't report it back, yeah, or it didn't show on what they had, so. Of the ones that did, it was, the average is 13,187. Pier was above that, but they did some trade-off with the county on some of their other funding sources, so I don't know if that's a real accurate comparison.
Michelle, is all your detox at Stepping Stones?
Yes.
That's the same, all under this runs the counseling and?
So detox for drugs and alcohol would be in that treatment building, yes.
No, okay.
Yes.
Are you full?
Close. Here's what our problem is if I look at my admission sheet, I'm full, I'm over full. Where are we going to put a mattress in the hallway? Getting people to show up, our confirmed arrival isn't always, they might say they're coming Monday, and we hope to see them by next Monday. So if you said, are my beds full, then yes, because I'm holding that for their admission, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next week.
And then just for transparency, part of that other discussion last year is that really mental health in the state of South Dakota is a financial responsibility of counties, which is why you cut back the city's contribution, because knowing that county funding is responsible for mental health services, that's how we ended up at 13,000.
Stephanie, can I ask a question? Because those numbers from the other cities were interesting to me. I knew that they contributed, but I didn't know what the dollars were. Do they break those out for mental health and drug and alcohol as well?
That
Or
was
does it just
any
behavioral
kind of
health?
counseling, like if they have a Dakota counseling, but in Brookings, I can't remember what it's called up there. I should know this. East Central Mental
East
Health
Central, and then
Counseling
Lewis and
Institute.
Clark,
Yep.
right. I just didn't know if it was all behavioral
Yep,
health or if
it was behavioral health or alcohol and drug abuse together. If anybody paid for any type of service towards that, that
they
was
lump it
reported.
together as
Yes.
under behavioral health.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Need a motion.
Well, I'm going to kind of look at this one the same way as we did Mitchell Main Street and beyond. I'm really committed to what we paid last year, and we'll see where we're at with the other dollars. We want to increase them at that point or not. So I'll make a motion for 13 and possibility of going up.
I'll second that.
A motion by Jeff, second by Tim. Any other discussion before we? All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Against, nay. Motion passed for 13. Looks like LifeQuest withdrew their application, so we'll go to the next one, and it'll be Prehistoric Indian Village. Any council talk?
Well, you guys know I'm a big supporter, so I know that we've cut them back the last few years. I guess I'm anxious to hear of some of their successes, and so, yeah.
Certainly. Mayor Everson and members of the council, my name is Jerry Gary. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Prehistoric Indian Village, and with me tonight is also Cindy Gregg, who's our executive director. And I don't want to focus so much on the proposal, but what the grant from the city of Mitchell really does for the site. And just briefly, I have been on the board of directors for the development of the Mitchell site since we incorporated back in 1978. So if you can do the math a little bit, that's about 45 years, and it's been an incredible experience. Particularly love history. But just very briefly, the Mitchell site is a National Historic Landmark. It is owned by the city of Mitchell, technically. It is a 1,000-year-old hunting, farming community, incredibly well preserved, and it's the only archaeological site open to the public in South Dakota. And the site was deeded to the society back in 1978 from the city of Mitchell for the purpose of preserving the site, developing the site, and then offering educational opportunities to the public. But the city has been our partner, solid, for the last 45 years, involved in many development projects. And we have worked diligently to raise the revenues necessary to keep the operation functioning and the development continuing on. And as a result of your participation in your partnership with us, we now have an asset base on that landmark in excess of $3 million. Our operating budget is approximately $200,000, and half of that comes from the touring public, and also the hundreds of school children that come through the site. Even though their admission is free, they bring their $2, and Cindy makes sure there's something in the gift shop for them. But it's part of the curriculum of hundreds and hundreds of students around the area that come and visit the site every year. And then the other half is raised by donations or grants, such as what we receive from the city. And probably one of the key details is that your grant to us then allows us to apply for about 4 or 5 other grants who insist on city participation at some level. So that's critical to us. But there are a number of key donations that I want you to be aware of, being that it is a National Historic Landmark. And I know you're probably aware of a lot of this. We host the Archaeology Department from the University of Exeter, England. They are led by internationally acclaimed Dr. Ellen Outram. They are here for 30 days to fulfill their archaeology course and credit requirements at Exeter. And they're in their 20th year of coming to Mitchell. And by the way, that's no charge to the society whatsoever. They have 30 days of rooms at a hotel, 30 days of 2 meals a day, and then, of course, the students spend their money around town while they're here for those 30 days. And that, like I said, there's no charge to the society. And then I know a number of you have met Dr. Adrian Hannes, formerly of Augustana University, recently retired, but he's been with us since 1983, and all of his services have been pro bono since 1983. And then just to highlight the other skins, so to say, that's in the game, that you aren't the only ones that are participating with us, but the Bainan family donated $180,000 to complete the renovation of the Bainan Memorial Museum back in 2015 and 16. And the Thompson family continues to contribute annually to the maintenance of the Thompson Center Archaeodome. So they continue to participate with us. And then most recently, through the David B. Jones Foundation, we constructed a storage facility along with a maintenance shop at the site, and that was to the tune of $77,000. That was a direct grant for that. We also have a member of the board, Steve Kinsella, and maybe a number of you remember Jack and Audrey Kinsella. Steve, being a native of Mitchell, has a great deal of interest in our project, is on the board, and he has now taken the responsibility of supervising our publicity and advertising campaigns. He's the owner-operator of Kinsale Communications out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and that's his specialty. And his services range from $150 to $200 an hour, and he is providing all of his services pro bono. So we're talking about thousands of dollars of donated time to the success of our project. And also, he is currently managing our Facebook page with weekly postings. If you go to our Facebook site, you'll see a lot of interesting things come out each week. We also have a number of individuals that provide IT services, site maintenance, and building maintenance, once again, pro bono, no charge to the society. And hopefully you'll remember this. We recently completed a 25-minute documentary on the site titled Prehistoric Truth Inside the Archaeodome. This was funded through sponsorships totaling $20,000, and it will be presented on South Dakota Public Broadcasting on October 22nd at 1:30 p.m. This was premiered at Logan's Theaters this past October. And fortunately, it was a full house. It was a great event. And there again, the purpose of the documentary is to promote the uniqueness of the site. And it's going to be presented in conjunction with Ken Burns's documentary on the North American bison. As a part of that, in order to get the documentary out into the school system, Dr. Graves, our current Secretary of Education, facilitated the distribution of that video to the school system in South Dakota. And within that video, we also recognize the Corn Palace because of the Mitchell site and the history of corn, and then the current major industry in South Dakota, which is agriculture. We are in the, and I think this is even very key to the whole process. We have never cash flowed necessarily. Each year, to show that there is additional skin in the game, we have had board members that have anteed up to fulfill the budget. This year alone, we have written checks just slightly in excess of $30,000 to make sure that the project continues to operate. And that's 30% of our fundraising goals right there. As a part of the longer-term commitment, because we're always so concerned about maintaining enough cash to operate, we're always having to ante up as board members to keep the operation functioning. We have now began planning for an endowment. We're in the planning stages, but as a part of that plan, we've got 3 individuals that have come forward that are going to make substantial contributions to that endowment so that we can make our operating budget more reliable year to year, particularly when we get to the point where Cindy would retire. We need to bring on another executive director. It's hard to hire somebody when we say, glad to have you, go out and raise your own salary. It's very difficult to find somebody who's willing to do that like Cindy was. So we are not here to ask the city to fund us without seeing that we have some of our own skin in the game and that we're committed to keeping this project alive. We've been doing it for 45 years and we hope to continue for many, many more years. So with that, I just simply ask wonder if you have any questions.
I will say something on the tourist side, being in that industry for about 8 years, until a year after COVID, people come into town, you're out there, hey, what's there all to see? Well, and that's the Corn Palace, they're all gonna come. And then what do you got? And I would send 100% of them out to the Indian Village, and never once did I hear anything bad on their return visit when you talk to them. I think it's very important for Mitchell to have more attractions. And, the Corn Palace is awesome, but what do you do after an hour? And, it's just nice to have the other things. And if you ever went through it, it's a pretty cool place. And you need to go through it once to enjoy it.
When you do that, try to do it during the 30 days that the students are here because there's great interaction with the kids. It's a fun experience.
I rode my bike past, I think it was on Sunday, and I was amazed at how many people were in the parking lot, people milling around and heading over. I think you guys do a great thing for us. So I would like to see us work to increase our support a little. So I would like to move that we increase to $17,000 to the Indian Village.
I would second that.
And a motion by Susan, second by John, to go to 17,000. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, nay? Nay.
I was going to comment, I'm on the same old, I'm for sure would support the last year's amount, and then we can see again where we're at with money, and see if we can get it up to the 17,000, and then commit at that point. That's where I would be at right now. Like I said, we've got to sit down with the department heads, and we've got to find some money, a lot of it.
Was there just Kevin and Jeff? Or were there other names? I didn't hear the names, sorry. Can we go around?
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Susan?
Yes.
Jeff?
Nay.
Jim?
Yes. Yes.
Nay.
Yes.
Yes.
Nay.
5-3.
Thank you very much.
17.
17. Oh, I thought it was 19. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but Susan made a motion for 17.
17,000.
Okay. Gotcha. Sorry. I wrote down 17.
So far, you've only got the 3 police cars on this budget.
No fire truck?
Didn't even get a rise out of Mr. Cosgrove's.
You just wait.
No.
Okay, next we have Dakota Heartland for 25,000. Dakota Heartland, 25,000.
David Lambert,
What?
I'm sorry.
Let's see if we, any discussion amongst council first?
Well, I'm the liaison on the Development Corp, and that's where David reports to, and we get monthly reports from him and working, and it's a great project around Parkston and Corsica and White Lake, and we've been to Letcher and so forth, and I see they're not requesting any increase, so I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Marty for keep it at 25,000. All in favor, say aye. Any other discussion first? Any discussion?
I got a question for Dave. How instrumental were you in bringing this soybean plant here?
That's a loaded question.
Bringing what?
And it was a team effort, and to
To
be
bring in
honest
what
with
was
you.
it? Oh,
Hold on.
While he's coming up, David was very instrumental in bringing a site of poet here in town, so he's got some experience. So I got a feeling he probably did help out quite a bit.
What I'm handing out is a letter from A1 Development, which is the pre-development group that we worked with, or actually the soybean processors worked with, to identify a location and then do the site development work and they continue to keep doing that. I asked for a representative from their group to be able to join you today. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it in person, and we did try to bring him in via Zoom video conference, but that's not an option. And so, but Kyle Peters, the lead on this project, clearly indicates that the impact that not just myself, but the entire community, whether it's Jerry Beck, obviously on the Mitchell development side, whether it's Jeff Bathke working at the county level, the mayor coming to a number of meetings in which we talked about things like water, availability of water, and the need for sewer and other components. It was a team effort. Can I stand here and say I want all the credit? No, I can't. And that's not what economic development's about. It's about basically helping people make good decisions and being there to answer the questions and the concerns sometimes of the neighborhood, or in this case, community leaders. It was not a slam dunk. There were county commissioners who questioned, as an example, requesting the $21 million in tax increment financing funding. To be quite honest with you, if I'm sitting in their shoes, I'd probably do the same thing. The economic impact, however, of this project is sizable, probably as large or larger than any project we've had in this region for a very long time. And so I'm confident that obviously the right decision was made. Obviously, they have started to do dirt work, and later this month they'll have a groundbreaking. And I'm looking forward to obviously continuing to participate in the process.
thanks.
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yeah. I have one other comment. It says you have some prospects bringing approximately $40,000 in. Where are you at with that? Is that like you're thinking next year that they will do that?
Okay, so what Mike is referring to is the fact that obviously because I cover a 6-county region, I am continuously visiting with our local communities in that 6-county region who are not members. This is not an easy subject. It's not a matter of saying, well, hey, look at what I did for Corsica, you need to join me. The reality is like many communities, it's about the leadership on the development team, and it's about the leadership at the city council level. And as an example, both Alexandria and Plankington, both county seat communities, both have obviously sizable downtowns and assets at their disposal, have indicated to me that they feel very good about the position that they're in. Thank you, Dave, for coming and seeing us, but we don't need to join you. In fact, Alexandria says, you know what, we're going to be the best bedroom community to Mitchell we can, and they have. Would they like to have more sales tax revenues? Yes. And there's been a little bit of change on the city council. I will continue to work with Jessica Baumiller, the city finance officer over there, to provide opportunities for her to continue to be engaged in that conversation. And at some point in the future, I'd love to have her join me. But at this point, I can't guarantee any of that. And and I tell people all the time, for the last 16 years, the 5 communities that I've worked with, well, 4 of them, have been with me, okay? But it's not automatic. because every year they ask about return on investment. Because it's about relationships, it's about being relevant, and it's about return on investment. And so in the case of Corsica, we've been pretty successful in building some homes there, utilizing some tax increment financing to buy a housing subdivision that was underperforming with 20 open lots, and over the last 2 years have been able to put 10 in there. That's wonderful news. And that should be wonderful news for you all, because to be honest with you, 40% of the folks that work in this community come from the region. So I'm beating a dead horse here. I appreciate, obviously, the support that I get from Councilman Smith and others on the council. We're just tickled to death that you continue to support us into the future.
One last thing, I think your meals line item, we could tone that.
Okay, so Mike, you buy next time. Okay. Other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dave. With Jeff, motion, I can't remember, and Marty was the motion by Jeff, second by Marty. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Against, nay. Motion passed. Next will be Mitchell Area Development Corp. for 167. Council have any talk on that?
But I see once again, they have 1.6 million. So they're not hurting too bad.
I'm sure Kimberly can answer it better than I can, but I'll start. Or Jerry. So there's as over the years, as we were trying to get companies and businesses to move to town, we're at a point now that we've kind of ran out of land. And so we're taking a look at two possibilities just south of the interstate and trying to bring in quite a few acres to potentially be able to entice more businesses and possibilities of coming to town. So I don't know, Jerry, if you want to piggyback onto that, but we're in a need of trying to start more industrial parks.
Yeah, if it's the cash balance that's going to bother you, it's going to be gone. We're going to be buying land in the future. We have a TIF coming up that you'll be looking at probably next month. We have to provide cash for the extension of 15th Avenue out to Ullman Street. So we do have the sale, hopefully, of our building along the bypass. So we'll have some revenue in there, but you're going to see a decrease in our cash, significant.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jeff, second by Susan. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, nay.
Nay.
7-1 to pass. Next, we will go to the CVB for 275.
Stephanie, doesn't their funding just depend on the sales tax?
No, this one is actually paid for out of the entertainment tax fund, but it is annually set by council. It's been, as you can see, $250,000 from the last 3 years. I do have a comparison to other cities. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a fair comparison because we also use the entertainment tax to subsidize your operation of the Corn Palace to offset those costs of that tourist location that a part of having the building open that doesn't make money to sell for free. So we're not charging admission, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that answers your question, John, but it is dependent on entertainment tax, but it's still an annual amount that is set by council.
So do you want to talk about what the extra 25,000 request is for?
What we're spending right now is above our budget. We've increased our activities and events and everything that's going on, plus inflation makes marketing more expensive. Right now, well, as the end of August, we are 84,000 in the red, and we're able to cover that because we have reserves. I guess we're letting you know that we're spending more than we are budgeted, but we need to if we want to market our community both locally, regionally, and nationally. And I will attempt to answer any questions that you have.
I will bring up, I think in the past, council had looked at that reserve balance that they were holding on to. There has been discussions about spending of some of those funds. Council had asked that those funds get spent down before you increase any allocation. I do know there's a plan to use some of that towards the, what do we call it, entry?
The welcome
entry
sign?
Or welcome sign, yeah, entrance.
That's been in, like, ongoing for a very
Forever.
long time. Can you tell us where we're at with
Great.
that?
Yes, I think that the spot, I think Johanna and Stephanie went out with the DOT. They've got
No, I did
the
not.
spot agreed upon.
I did not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Johanna did that alone.
Okay.
Correct.
So we should have that in place in the next couple of months.
Trying to find that spot. It's broken out towards the back. Towards the back, I gotta keep going. My goodness, Kimberly.
Our cash balance at the end of July was 233,000 minus the 78,000, about 150 right now is the cash available.
I'd be in favor of the 250. Make a motion.
I would second that.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any discussion first?
Is that Tim?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess for me, where I'm at is, we raised the rent on the Corn Palace as a way to make the Corn Palace more financially solvent. And to then add money to this fund just means that we're taking money out of one fund to feed the other fund, in my opinion. And so that's why the 250 is where I'm at.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the 250, say aye. Aye. Against, nay. Motion passed, 250. That's it.
Yeah, it's right here, 623,000. 373,000 of that would be general fund impact, and then 250,000 out of entertainment tax. And I set it up so it would automatically carry over here. So,
I'm just going to, can I just say something? Do you mind if I say something real
No,
quick?
go ahead.
Could we do the same thing with the money for the CVB? And let's take a look again when we circle around and see if we are able to come up with additional funds that we might be able to bring those up to the 275. Please?
Everything's
Yeah,
open.
everything's open for budget.
Until November.
yeah, until the second meeting in November, you have the right to change it at any time, yeah.
We can at least make a note that
You
maybe,
gotta take something away.
I get it, I
We can
know.
double it or take it down to zero, whatever we want to do.
What's that?
We could double it or take it to zero.
So, and on the other two, where it was Jeff's request, I put his name, so I'll put your name on this one.
That's fine.
Well, that,
Is that all we're gonna do?
is that all we're going to do?
I had the other list down. You know, we didn't spend a lot of time going through this. I do have the other capital items. I didn't know if you wanted to have some other conversation, and then I do have some follow-up items that were asked at the last meeting that I would like to 623, out of that 373,000 you have to cut out of general fund and 250,000 out of entertainment tax. Just one, Yep. Oh, yeah, your guys' spreadsheet isn't totally for you, is it? Sorry. So the general fund is 370,
373 out of general fund right now.
and then entertainment tax is 250. So here's a breakout right here if you want to look. Sorry, I forgot you guys are actually on paper. A couple things to maybe just note on the capital list from what we reviewed previously. One of the items that was cut was a microfilm scanner from the library because they were needing it to archive or to access some of the old records. And actually, Kevin Kinkle was able to locate a used one through a library network. And so all he had to do is pay for the cost of shipping. So there's a little kudos for Kevin on that one. There was also some questions that I've been asked by council, so I just wanted to follow through with those and go. I did distribute this to you as well, but I was asked at the last session what our breakout of improvements have been by, why is that not going over? It's missing one. Oh, no. Okay, well, we used to have that. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm missing one of my columns. I'll have to go back. I did give you a breakout of what the infrastructure was as compared to the equipment and facility improvements and how much of that came out of the general fund. One item that I didn't mention in my overview during the last presentation, I talked about that we're factoring in sales tax to get to 2022 levels. But the reason why I have not taken any of the increase that we're seeing in 2023, there is a ballot measure that is going to be on the next election that would take away the sales tax from groceries as well as consumables. I can tell you the grocery alone impact to the city annually is $938,000 in tax revenue that we would lose if that ballot measure passes. So if you're wondering why I'm not looking at collections in 23, we do have a risk of losing almost $1 million next year. So depending on how that goes forward. We had talked quite a bit about the golf cart repayments. So Rochelle and I were digging into that, and we did the budget transfer in 2021 to transfer the cash out of general fund into the golf fund, but we never actually transferred the cash. So they do not owe for the repayment of the 2021 golf carts. It's already been done. We did find on the books, though, there was a resolution. Oh, geez, I did write it down. 2013. There was a, $75,000 loan. It was a $100,000 loan, you're right. There's $75,000 remaining, but the loan was $60,000 for carts and $40,000 for a mower. They did pay $25,000 in 2014. Because that was passed as a resolution by council, Michelle still has to carry it on the books. If council's okay with us forgiving that loan, we could bring that to an upcoming council meeting, and then there's no more funds owed from golf into the general fund at all. Again, the 2021, we did the budget transfer, but the cash was never actually transferred out of the general fund into the golf fund. So they don't owe at all for 2021, but they do still owe $75,000 from 2013. I'll need direction from council if you'd like to forgive that loan so that we can schedule it at a future meeting. Another follow-up item, I'm going to change this view off, hold on. Council had asked about what are some of our major upcoming items that we know about. So we looked 2 to 5 years out. These were the items that really came up during discussions with department heads. We know we have a fire truck replacement, can range anywhere from 500 to 1.2 depending on the vendor. And then we have Corn Palace boilers and the chillers that are going to need to be replaced. That was discussed as part of your remodeling project when we looked at the cost of that. Some of those maintenance items were included in that total cost, but we do know that that's going to happen. I was asked about the Gaynor Park playground equipment. We did remove it in order to fund the pickleball courts, knowing that that was a current grant application and it was a higher priority. Actually, the park board had listed the mowers as a higher priority. Originally, the mayor and I had cut one of the mowers, but then they asked for that to get put back because it was a higher than Gainer Park. So just so you have follow-up on that. And the last question that I was asked is, what would it cost for the city to add another patrol officer, drug dog? So here you can see an estimate of the annual operating expenses of $136,056, and then the one-time startup cost would be $57,000. So that should be, and I have provided that to you previously, but that should be all the additional follow-up items that council had asked me to report back on.
So the pickleball course, is it going to happen 24 or 25?
2024.
The federal government needs to approve this, the starting of this. So even though it came from Game Fish and Parks, it actually went through the U.S. Forestry Service. So they have final word to put their stamp on it. That will occur sometime between.
They might not know you got the grant.
Yeah, you might want to announce that.
Okay.
Somebody called me.
Okay.
Upset because the reason I'm asking, I was trying to clarify, they said it wasn't going to happen until 2025.
So sometime between April and July, we'll get the formal approval from the federal government to be able to proceed with doing contracts for engineering and starting groundwork. So
You can't do anything
until at
before
least,
that, or we're stuck
correct,
with the bill.
correct.
Yeah, so realistically, are you thinking still 2024?
There's still a possibility we could get it done next year.
Yeah. And keep in mind, they could have,
It'll carry over to 2025.
I know, but these people want to know because they raised a lot of money.
right.
They did, and if they can get the federal government to move faster, more power to them.
I think our hope is that,
Start earlier.
that, our hope is that it would be constructed in '24. That's why we have it included in the '24 budget.
Thank you.
Kevin, Mike said he'll fit you in if you get it done.
Did Stephanie make note of that up there on her, on the spreadsheet?
Does that mean we don't have to put any of it in budget?
You know, Kevin, I know we had sidebar conversations on the Gainer Park one, and I'm not asking to change anything in your budget. I just want to make sure the park board keeps a close eye on it, that if someone would come around to make that work, as we all know, and we spoke before, when we did a park playground every single year, we do it for a reason, because we have so many parks. And once you take one off the list one year, you don't catch it back up. We all know how it works. But I understand the wishes of the park board. I'm going to support that. I just hope if something does tweak on your guys' end and budget ends up being there, I would really like you to take a good look of getting Gainer Park back into your budget if it comes that way. But for the time being, I support what you got going on.
Thank you. The one mower that's listed on there is larger than what we currently have. The mower we have is around, the one that, of the 6-footers that needs to be replaced, has around 5,200 hours. And generally speaking, when they get to be about 6,000 hours, they're ready to go out the door. This was an upgrade to go to a 10.5-foot mower, and it will save time, especially if we're low on staff and if we have a wet year. That was the reason for that increase over what it would have been for a 6-foot mower.
I did have them put together just a list of the age of those parks, so we could keep that updated as we go forward too. And as you said, Marty, you can see that we've been making that progress over the last couple of years, so that's really, really good to see. And I know some of this was, that break might have been because of COVID, or I don't even know, that was, kind of a blur during COVID years, but every other year we've done pretty steady replacement. Yep, and now we'll be able to add the pickleball courts in 2023 as well, so it's good to see that.
So realistically, that's a playground, but for adults.
Yep.
The pickleball courts.
So Jeff and I, and maybe it's just Jeff and I, got an email today from Chris Rederath, who's the chair of the Park and Rec Board. And he suggested that one way to keep that Gainer Park in, we have $150,000 coming from the Public Works Department for street and sidewalk construction, the bike paths at the golf and cemetery. It currently comes down and basically goes around the entire perimeter of the golf course. And he suggested another alternate route. I feel like I should show you all.
Because of the way the golf course is changing, it doesn't work.
Well, this is what he said, that it would accommodate the golf course changes. Yeah, so what he's.
That's how it's gonna be, that they're moving the hole over, so you wouldn't have the existing.
There wouldn't be a way.
Explain where you're moving the hole to.
Does somebody have a pointer? They could,
Where a dirt pile is there from a cemetery?
Yeah, so the new hole will be like right in here,
I see.
so it doesn't work.
Okay. Well, I appreciate his, ingenuity and finding alternative ideas for funding. I agree with you, Marty. I hate to ever see a year go by that we're not improving a park, so I'm with you on that.
were there any other questions or concerns on the other capital items that are shown that we went through at the last session? Haven't really received any other. Or do you want to go down these, go through the list one at a time? I guess you've done that in the past. Yep. Do you guys want to go down this list and see if there's any issues that somebody wants to pull something out, or?
Sure. I mean, we have, 15 minutes? Or is there not a deadline tonight? I'm like, it'll only last 2 hours, yes. 7:30, okay.
2 hours.
I have a question for Joe. It says Kimbus Code sidewalk construction, 120 foot overlay. Are you gonna make all them homeowners put sidewalks?
It's just a mill and overlay for the surfacing. But if they don't have sidewalk, we could definitely look at an assessment.
Oh, you're okay.
Joe was going to ask a question on the 1st and 7th. Since it's cut in half, is that only going to be one of the traffic lights that are going to be replaced?
Correct.
And that's the 7th? Is that the one that gets hit the most?
Yes.
So in the traffic study, did they recommend replacing it with lights? Or is there any other recommendation? It's probably not big enough for roundabout.
You have to have more room for.
I figured that.
So there,
We can try and figure that out.
yeah, the intersections are very unique at 7th and 1st in that it's one of the few crossing routes through town, east and west, from a school crossing to a emergency vehicle crossing. We feel it is important to have the lights for those reasons.
Okay. Versus the stop signs.
Correct.
Okay.
The reason, I believe, when we had our departmental overview on the budget with the mayor, when we looked at 1st versus 7th, we couldn't afford to do both of those for $1.2 million, knowing that 7th gets hit more frequently, but also to give us more time to see if there's an alternate for 1st Street. You know, maybe that one could be done differently. Maybe that one doesn't need to be the lights, based on the traffic study too, so.
I know Danny, when he was here, always was looking for ways that things could be shared between departments. Are there any things that are currently there of overlap that we might be able to find things like that?
Not really, but we could take out the dump truck, $235,000.
I don't know, I watched them work through the night the other night, pretty much.
I will also point out, I know the mayor said, well, that's our 3 Tahoes that we have in there, but I think for the general public, it's also important to point out the last 3 or 4 years, we've been replacing our vehicles with used vehicles through a buyout program in Kansas. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah.
And we just feel like we're to the point now where, you know, we've been replacing with slightly used vehicles, but we need to get some newer vehicles on our fleet as well.
It's also getting harder to get them from Kansas.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, Chief Coster, just real quick on that. Mayor's exactly right. Working with Kansas Highway Patrol, we're still waiting to get the car that we were supposed to get early in '23. In an ideal world, Kansas trades out just over 200 cars a year. And when we first got into that program, there were not a lot of agencies that knew that they were there. And in speaking with Larry Lewis in Kansas, who runs the program for Kansas Highway Patrol, they have waiting lists because everybody's gotten into, we're buying used cars from Kansas. The downside to doing that it worked well as a Band-Aid. We get those cars with about 45 to 50,000 miles. You're replacing, in a normal year, going back, a car with 8 miles per year. For the last 3 years, we've replaced cars with cars that have 50,000. So in doing so, we're actually putting ourselves in a worse position the longer we do that, that everything is becoming high mileage. I think nearly every car we have is in the neighborhood of 115 to 130,000 miles, which,
Again, like I said earlier, we're just to the point now that we need to get some newer vehicles in our rotation versus just replacing with used. A couple other things to point out also is that we do have some cameras planned for out by the lake, and we have to put a point-to-point connection on the water tower out by the soccer fields, which will give us some more options for out there. They also have some planned cameras and controls at Hitchcock Park and the sports complex. Hitchcock Park is to try to catch some of the areas where we've had some vandalism problems as well.
And those are only about to
Yeah, they're not.
35,000. You know, we're gonna need 350,000.
I'm looking here.
So Joe, talk to us about the dump truck. I mean, that keeps being brought up. Can you tell us about the dump truck?
It's a big white thing.
I want to speak for something real quick, Joe. This weekend, they were working through the weekend. I seen one truck sitting in the yard with a tire rolled up next to it, needed a new tire put on it. Right in the middle of the driveway coming in. Another truck sitting on the bypass, the antifreeze all the way out. So the trucks are getting old.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Joe.
They are getting, I'm trying to pull up the year of the truck that we're replacing.
We tend to cut these tend to be the easy things to cut out of the budget as we get
Yeah.
over the budget.
That goes back to what we said at the last work session, the way we have balanced the last 3 to 4 years in order to fund the infrastructure projects we've been doing, we've been cutting these equipment requests, and we're to the point where you can't keep pushing off these equipment replacements much further because we're spending more in trying to keep things running.
So we currently, right now, realistically, 3 trucks could potentially be replaced. We're looking to ask for one now, and we'll ask for one next year and the following until we get these 3 replaced. And by that time, it's very, very possible that next 1 or 2 will need to be replaced. You know, it's a benefit. These trucks are older. They're easier to work on than some of the newer ones, so we're able to keep them moving. But like you said, like the winter we had, it's that much harder on them, so it's, you know, that much more repairs we may need. It's just kind of the ticking time bomb. And we've been able to get by, but, you know, if we have an issue where, well, last year we did have the issue where there were 2 or 3 down at one time, and that, you know, it's difficult for the guys because they're wondering what piece of equipment they're going to get into next. You know, what are they going to be driving? Are the ones that are out on the road now safe?
I'm looking at kind of some of the higher dollar stuff. Could we put the streetscapes on? Well, that's $250 or $250,000. That's one of the higher.
Actually, there's more than one streetscape budget line, so the overlay part would be $965.
That way we're not cutting equipment that we need.
Then you've got the storm drainage improvements, that would be a general fund cost, that's $520,000. You can't do the third and main because that bid's already been awarded. And the other ones would be water and wastewater probably, right? Or entertainment tax, and you can't use that for other purposes, so.
Can we look, I'm going to show my ignorance, but I'm not ashamed to ask a question that I don't know the answer to, okay? So I see a Bobcat with attachments that we're using, 105,000. And then I also see that we have, okay, so I don't know my vehicles. So we have a payloader. So can you tell me the difference between those and, what? Oh, the payloader was cut, okay. So then let's just talk about that $105,000 Bobcat with attachments.
So the skid loader has been requested, I believe, last year for sure. I think it was last 3 years.
Oh, that's a skid loader.
It's a skid loader.
A skid loader. I know what a skid loader is.
Skid loader.
So with that, we're asking for a new miller, 24-inch. The one we have now, still operational, but needs to be replaced. And we're asking for a hydraulic angle broom. Anytime now we need to do sweeping, we have to bring in the street sweeper. Whereas if we have this, our street sweepers could stay on their normal routes doing what they need to do, and we could use a broom on a skid loader to do some of that sweep.
So what are you going to use the Bobcat for? What does it get used? Where is it used?
So it got used today out in the parking lot project. Skid loader is such a versatile piece of equipment. We use it about every day.
So why do we need another one if we have one?
Replace.
Replace. Yep.
Joe, why do you go with Bobcat?
I guess that's a generic
Yeah.
term. We'll have to put them out for quotes and bids.
Yeah, I should have listed it,
That's okay.
yeah, generic as well.
I actually thought it was the same thing.
Yeah, that's something they use all the time.
Side by side. We do. What was that thing Nathan always wanted?
Toolcat.
Toolcat.
That's what I thought it was a tool cat.
That was a sore subject in these meetings.
Well, because you have a tool cat.
Yes, we have it.
We actually
Golfers
have
have it.
golfers. Because I see it going down the school side of it. Okay, question, Joe. What in the world would recycling need a mini excavator for?
We would use that for helping to load the trucks, as well as compressing the recyclables down into the truck. And then, obviously, we would use it elsewhere as needed.
How do you compress it now? Drag on?
So right now, we use a loader bucket. We do have a smaller one, but the guys feel it would be more efficient and can get more material in the truck if we would have a smaller way of compressing it.
And then this is just for the general public's information, so that's coming out of the sanitation fund, which is an enterprise fund paid for out of the fees collected for sanitation.
Yeah, so that's not out of general.
Where are we at with the contingency?
This year? Or
No.
what's in the budget for next year?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh geez, I got too many of these open now.
About $8,000 less this year.
No, it's less than that, I think. So we currently have 734,892, and this year is 811,000. So we're 70,000, is that, something like that, right? Is that what you said? Oh,
We don't,
Almost 80,000.
yeah, see, I got to trust his
we don't
math
want to
in
cut
his
into
head.
that, definitely.
No, I'm thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to add to that, we gotta figure out where to get it from.
Well-
Either, let's run it out of the general fund. Yeah. You're gonna run out of money next year, so I'm good.
No, I think we need to, contingency needs to be around that 800,000 like we usually have. And we've been fairly fortunate to make that work on those numbers. But Stephanie, I'm wondering, or Mayor and Stephanie both, and obviously all the department heads, obviously in years past, obviously we take a look and we dissect things to make our numbers work, and we work with the department heads. Obviously with what we did tonight, given guidance on what we believe we want to subsidize with these applications that we had, is it beneficial for you to go back and take a look and talk to the department heads a little bit? I mean, at some point in time, yeah, we get up here and we start breaking things down as we're asking questions, but with the budget being, always open till November, and we're sitting here in September, not that it's far away, but I don't want to get into a panic mode over this tonight is what I'm trying to get at. We know we got to make some adjustments, but if I had it my way right away, just visiting with Kevin a minute ago, I'd have put Gainer Park in and lost a mower. I don't want to get to that. There's a reason why he's sitting over there and I'm sitting here.
Right.
And I think they respect that with all the other department heads to take a look at possible things that they can do or work with you guys on where the general fund is at, where taxes are coming in at. I don't think we can do it tonight. I don't think we should do it tonight. I think we got some good direction. Now we got to take a look at what's doing, and maybe there's some
Right.
recommendations from you guys to come back to us council, and then we go from there.
I think that works as long as I know that there isn't a $400,000 project that we still need to put in here that I'm not aware of, or that there isn't a major capital project that you guys are wanting to cut. If you want us to go forward and say, okay, if we're going to be making this 373 into the general fund and 250 in entertainment tax, here's how we can do it. We can go forward with that as long as I don't come to the next meeting and now we have to find another 500 or whatever else the project might be.
Yeah, we'll have to sit down
Correct.
What we got.
And I personally would like to have you guys do that first before we sit up here and start dissecting things that we're going in the wrong direction. I mean, it's.
As long as you don't see, yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're asking too.
As long as there's not something major
Joe great
omitted
help.
from the request that you guys would like to see included that we've just failed to include. As long as you aren't seeing some major project you want us to add in. I know I heard pickleball from you guys probably 10 times this year, so we made sure that one was in. But I mean, as long as we're not missing anything else, we can go to work and look at what we can do to fund these.
Yeah, and I personally looked over the stuff that did get removed, everything from the restroom at cemetery and all that stuff. And once you start looking at the whole picture, those things do make sense that we just got to put them on a delay. And that's where I currently am at. And like I said, I think we gave some direction tonight, and I'd rather have you guys internally come back with your guys' recommendations because those certain areas way better than we do as a council. We're to help out the community and guidance, but we need you guys to say, hey, this is what I want to do because this is what my department needs. And as we need the police cars for Mike, I'm not taking away cop cars if that's what we got to have because we're sitting there putting Band-Aids on them, and that sounds like we are. And we're putting a Band-Aid on a dump truck. So if we got to come up with something else, I'd rather Joe, hey, this is what I'm willing to lose. Don't take my dump truck. That kind of attitude. So.
Makes sense. Yeah. We'll look at it.
Yep. We know the dollar amount, so we can move forward.
Anything else then? I think we're adjourned then. We can wrap it.
On which one?